Jay, welcome aboard to the show. So happy to have you with us today.
Thank you, Ari. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for reaching out to me and being a guest.
Love it. So I'm gonna blast you into the past. I want to say about 40 years into the past. You are. We came here to talk about sales. I promise you, we're probably gonna get to that, but it's hard to ignore the fact that you're a Marine, or we're in the
Mhm.
Marines, and you're about to do that. You're about to enlist, have your first day. What's going through your head? Why even do that?
So I come from a military family. All of the men in my family had served in the military, including my brother. I was really involved early on. I was fascinated with airplanes and aerospace, and was active in Civil Air Patrol, which is the auxiliary of the Air Force, when I was younger, and worked through the ranks there and became a cadet commander, and just honestly was kind of infatuated with aviation and the military in general. I also felt like I wasn't really ready for college. I certainly could have gone to college, but I think I had this lingering effect or lingering desire to join the military. I wanted to be something part of a team that was greater than myself. I wanted to travel the world and learn new things. I also went in with the intention of having it be a lifelong career. So I wanted to go in and do something that I hope to enjoy, that if I ever had to get out, I could take something with me. And so that's what I did. So day one, I was excited. I was ready. I had been working with my recruiter all summer long, and I was ready to go. So I shipped off to Paris Island, South Carolina on August 17th, 1992.
And you spent almost a decade, 9 years in the Marines.
I did.
What's the most saleable, the thing that you can kind of look back and remember, like that shocked my life views. That kind of built me as the person that I am today. Can you remember like one story like that kind of changed you as a person through that experience?
Well, I think in general, I was fortunate in the Marine Corps that I flew on helicopters. So when we went on long deployments, I got to frequently go off the ship and go onto land to do land exercises, or simply go to an airport like in Tel Aviv to pick up mail for the ship. And I got to experience cultures in a way that a lot of people don't get to do. I went to countries like Tunisia and Albania. We were actually the first American unit into Albania to do joint exercises with the Albanians. And this was after the fall of communism. And I never thought that people still lived that way. Like they still had a fear that the West was going to, in some way, be attacking their country. And we formed some really tight relationships locally with a lot of Albanian soldiers that lasted for years and years. So I think for me, it was just really understanding the fact that people live differently in the world, and everybody has their own sense of normalcy. Um, I don't know. It was a growing point, and to do that with people that I knew at any point in time would give their life for me, and I would do the same for them. Just it made it an overall amazing experience that I am so glad that I did in my life, and that I for delayed college at the time. So
Do you remember any specific, very strong and vivid memory or scene or something specific that you saw and like, wait, hold on. I mean, I think that many of our audience hasn't necessarily traveled the world like you have. What was the actual thing that you saw that you went, wait, that's batshit crazy. That's mad.
yeah, there's a distinct uh, thing, and it was when we were on the ground in Albania. I was there doing medevac, so we were essentially had the helicopters ready to fly in case one of the ground troops was hurt. We had to fly them back to the ship or whatever. What was amazing to me was the Albanian soldiers still patrolled the country, like on a regular basis. They would leave their little base and they would go patrol. And they came by us, and we started engaging in conversations. And I'll remember there was one specific soldier. I'll never forget. I don't know if I can say his last name, but his name was Soldier Sokoldoro, and that was his name. And he was a big Metallica fan.
Mm.
And the guy that I was flying with was also a large Metallica fan. So he gave him CDs that he had with him from the US. And interestingly enough, the next night, well, they took us down into their little camp, and we got to meet all these old Albanian soldiers that had been there since the days of communism, that, big long beards and these just really manly men, um, and really just got to understand a little more about people in general. But what was batshit to me was Soldier Socoldoro. The next day, his same unit came by and he wasn't there. And so when we started asking where he was actually imprisoned for having conversations with the American, what they called them, American soldiers. We were Marines, obviously, but we didn't take offense to that. But he was actually imprisoned for having conversations with us. And I thought, this is crazy that people in the world still live that way today. And well, this was 1995, but yeah.
Well, in fairness,
So
it's still today also in
yeah,
some ways.
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's probably need a whole nother hour to talk about the freedoms that we have that we don't really appreciate,
that's true.
that are also fragile that we could possibly lose. But that's a whole
That's right.
different topic.
Yeah.
So 10 years in the Marines, your first day back on civilian clothes, is that a scary thing?
It is scary. Things are a lot different today in the fact that, you could be 26 years old and still have health insurance. Back then it was, if you weren't a full-time student, uh, you were cut off from mommy and daddy and had to fend for yourself. So when I got out of the Marines, let's see, this was 2002. So I still, I certainly couldn't be on mom and dad's insurance. So the scary part was making that transition. The good thing was that I had prepared myself for that. So by trade, I'm actually an aircraft mechanic. I came out of the Marines working on helicopters, got my FAA airframe and power plant certification, and pretty much had a job lined up when I got out. So my first job was performing aircraft maintenance at a third-party facility in Mobile, Alabama. I left North Carolina. My now wife was in graduate school at the time. I packed up and I moved to Alabama, which to me was a very different place as well. It almost felt like I had been traveling again and been in another country in some cases. No offense to anyone that's from Alabama, obviously, but it was a big culture change for me. And so that was my first job, where I started to transition back into civilian life, and I was doing something that I was familiar with and comfortable with, and that was essentially turning wrenches and working on airplanes. So that's always my fallback. If software sales and cybersecurity doesn't work out, I can always go fix airplanes.
Was there something in the culture between kind of military lifestyle and civilian that was a shock for you initially?
Um, no, not really. I think because of the field that I was in, everything was very black and white. Like there wasn't a
Mm,
lot of gray area in
mm,
aircraft maintenance. You're specifically following guidelines. There is no, well, let me try and do it this way,
right.
right? It has to be done a certain way. So I think overall I adjusted really well. I kind of have this chameleon effect of finding ways, and I guess being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? It's almost like I embrace that challenge sometimes, where it's not monotony to me, where if I'm faced in a situation that's uncomfortable, I just kind of roll with it. Like I do my best. Um,
That is unique. I have spoken to a lot of veterans on this show even, and
mhm.
that's a really important characteristic that I don't know if you know how to teach people to be uncomfortable, comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's something I want to teach my kids for sure. So that's I absolutely love that. So
Yeah.
from basically being a mechanic,
Mhm.
if that's a fair statement,
Yep.
you decided to launch a career in sales. What those things seem to be diametric worlds. They don't even overlap in some ways.
Right.
How did that come?
Um, so my first child, my daughter, was on the way, and I was working. I relocated back to North Carolina, but I was still working as an aircraft mechanic here. And an opportunity came open in the marketing department
Mm,
to essentially work with customers, do more of an account management thing. So, working at a third party facility, when an airline brings an airplane there, they have representatives that come on site with the airplane to essentially project managers to make sure that the process runs smooth. They sign off on maintenance requests and all that. My role in the marketing department was simply to oversee those folks from an account management perspective, make sure they had everything they needed. Was their office set up when they got there?
mm,
Did, Did they need dinner reservations? It was like a gopher, right? Where I kind of
Mm-mm.
just did anything for the marketing department that they needed. And that was my transition. And then it became to where one of the folks in the marketing department actually got sick and took a short-term disability, and he had owned some accounts.
Mm.
And so I said to my boss, like, hey, would you mind if I stepped in and kind of took over this for a contractual perspective and just ran it? He's, yeah, that's fine. I mean, you know the customers. You're
Mm.
an aircraft mechanic, so you know the work, you know what
Mm.
needs to be done. He's like, but just, run it by me. So I kind of learned a little bit of negotiating there. I ended up moving into a full-time role. So my first job was selling aircraft maintenance for that particular company. So it was kind of putting a couple things together.
Was there a fear there that, you know the aircrafts, obviously, the know tools, but this, standing in front of a client and basically fucking up somebody's account? I mean, that's pretty brave to go and say, "Oh, you mind if I step in here and maybe mess this up for somebody else and you?"
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I had a big mess up there, and it was a major learning point for me. So I don't mean to go down a rabbit hole, but I think this is an
Oh,
important
this is the
transition
show of
from
the
what you
rabbit
just said.
holes.
Okay, good. So I had my first customer that I was given was a cargo company out of Colombia, South America, and they had four DC-8 airplanes, which pretty old even at that time. And in aircraft maintenance, they go through four stages of maintenance checks: A, B, C, and D. A being the lightest, D being the heaviest check, where virtually every panel on the airplane comes off and it's full corrosion inspection. Just, it's long. And for a cargo company to have one of four airplanes down during a D check for months and months is a significant revenue dump. Um, so the we negotiated the contract. It came down to the day where they were delivering the airplane. They were going to bring the airplane in. I was going to fly with them on our corporate airplane to Miami. We had just bought a new interior seat facility. I was going to show them the facility, and then I was going to fly on their airplane from Miami to Medellin, Colombia. Um, Everything was great. It was going to be an amazing trip. This was 2002. And as the airplane was coming in, I was approached by the director of planning, and he told me, "Look, we screwed up. We screwed up the pricing." He said, essentially, we're missing $250,000 in the quote to actually open the airplane up and get the panels off. He said, and that's a significant amount of revenue that we can't just bring the airplane in and make it up. He said, so we're going to need to address it right away, and you, as the account owner, have to address this problem. So as the airplane's on its way in, I'm on the phone with their VP, who's in Medellin, Colombia, and I'm asking for $250,000 extra on the day of, after they'd significantly budgeted for this for quite some time. We finally negotiated that it could happen, but now I had to go down and face this man in person because
Wait,
that
wait,
was the
hold
next
on.
leg of the trip.
I can't let you get away with this. What happened between you need to do this and we finally negotiated that it was possible? What did that look like?
Well, the airplane was already on its way in. They
Right,
had already decommissioned essentially the airplane and realigned all of their scheduling. So they'd already put a significant investment in.
right. They were on the hook.
They were on the hook. And there was a caveat there that I did not know about
Mm,
until I met this man in person in Medellin, Colombia.
mm,
And when I got there, it was evening. I also didn't know at the time that this particular airline was one of the largest importers of flowers into the US. So I flew on an airplane that smelled very nice on my way to Colombia, needless to say. Um, but I got there, and I remember it to this day, even though it was 23 years ago. He drove everywhere in a taxi cab. His driver was a bodyguard, but he rode in a cab. And I'm sitting in the back seat with this guy, and he tells me, I'm going to give you the money, but I want it back. And I said, well, what do you mean you want it back? He's like, look, I know when you guys go through maintenance, if something takes 20 minutes, you put an hour. He's like, I want you to accurately reflect that you're going to spend 15 to 20 minutes on this quick corrosion cleaning or whatever that might be. Okay, sure. I'm sitting in the back of your cab. Of course I'm going to agree to this. I'm in Colombia and I don't really look Colombian. So I
mm,
kind of stood out in Colombia. But that was really a turning point for me because since that day when I've written a lot of statements of work for clients, I've now a lot more diligent, even in proposals. Like I will sit and comb over a proposal word for word for hours sometimes to make sure that it's correct. So I'm glad I learned that when I did, because I honestly think it's made me a better person throughout my career. Um, Crazy story, nothing
Did you end up
that.
giving him those future discounts and kind of breaking even?
Another interesting part is I got laid off
Oh my God.
between the time that the airplane came in and the airplane left because the company did some significant growth too fast, and ended up having a mass layoff and got bought by another firm. So I don't know what happened to the airplane. I remember several times, like for a year later, it was still sitting on the ramp. My understanding is that they hadn't paid yet, so the airplane still sat there for quite some time.
Oh man. Ugh.
Yeah.
So,
And then I transitioned to selling tools to the military for Snap-on tools after that. Um, so now I was really putting together the best of all my worlds, and I worked for Snap-on Direct, literally selling tools to the military out of the trunk of my car. So I didn't drive a truck or anything, and all of the tools we made for the military, some were custom, like for the F-15. Um, I would simply go see my customers in all the different flight line shops every week, take warranty orders, take away broken tools, order them, bring them back new tools, and hopefully create new tool programs for them. And love that job. So
we
yeah,
we complain nowadays about, cost of a click, right? But we kind of forget that, 20, 30, 40 years ago, you had to send a person to give
that's right.
physically to show the product or to knock on a door or to, and it's like, well, maybe $15 a click doesn't sound so bad.
That's right. Especially with the price of gas.
Yeah, this is right. This is right. So I
Yeah,
want to jump to something else that caught my curiosity.
yeah,
You worked for BlackBerry
I did.
for about 5 years,
I did.
and that was between 2008 and
The
2013.
glory days.
W-
Yeah.
was the end in sight? Like, were there concerns that we're missing something? This is going. Was Google anywhere, near visibility at that stage? What? Or were you just there for the ride?
No, I think well, we very much drank the Kool-Aid, where we knew we had a great product and BlackBerry was great. But what we did start to see was, so our sales philosophy at BlackBerry was we were top-down sellers. I could call any organization, say hey, I'm Jay with BlackBerry. I'm in Atlanta this week. I want to go see Coca-Cola Enterprises, and I could make a phone call and get in the door. We had that brand recognition, and I sold through channel, so between my partners at AT&T, I pretty much could get a meeting anywhere. And with BlackBerry, our approach was always top-down selling. So I would get a meeting with the CIO, CTO, CFO, whatever C-level exec, hand them a BlackBerry and say, go use this and tell me if you don't see value in your people being able to do more. And then we had, the third-party studies that said on average, employees could save 60 minutes a day by having a BlackBerry and doing email on the go. I'm showing my age because a lot of people watching this probably say, email on the go, like that hasn't always been there. You haven't always been able to do that. No, you weren't. And BlackBerry was really one of the pioneers in that back in the Mobitex days. But so we saw this top down approach, and what it became was a lack of capability because of the admin restrictions that they could put on Blackberries. Then the iPhone came along in 2008, and the iPhone took a very different approach. The iPhone went bottom up. So the iPhone started pitching itself to the lines of business. Hey, why do you want to carry two phones? Why do you want to carry one for personal and one for work? We have one phone that can do everything. Oh, and by the way, there's this large app store. I think what happened was we really failed to innovate, especially when it came to getting the developer community together. We didn't do a great job with that. But we also had two different dynamics in leadership. So we had Jim Balsley, who was a very smart business guy. We had Mike Lazaridis, both co-CEOs. Mike's hobbies on the weekend were moving particles from one side of the room to the other with his hobby of quantum physics, who firmly believed that BlackBerry could sell itself and he didn't need salespeople. But then Jim, on the other hand, was a smart business guy. His focus was buying the Pittsburgh Penguins. So two very different dynamics, but we actually had a call with both of them around the globe, every regional manager, every Monday morning at 8 a.m. And we started in Asia Pacific and worked our way back. And we'd talk about what we did that week. but ultimately, I don't want to go too far down a hole, but I think we failed to innovate as a company. And yes, I could kind of see the writing on the wall because we saw the iPhone becoming really prolific.
I mean, that's such a wild journey that you went through, because I remember like first of all, I loved the keyboard on the BlackBerry, but
Yes,
also I
nothing better.
remember it. I even when the first Android HTC came out, that one had a keyboard too. It was like a
Uh-huh.
flip open keyboard, which I absolutely adored. And but on the other hand, it was like this because of that sales tactic, right? The top down, mainly it was the executives using the BlackBerry, so it
That's
was a
right.
status symbol.
Yeah,
So if you had a BlackBerry, you were somebody, right?
that's
But the
right.
rest of the executives didn't get it, right?
That's right.
um, Definitely not individual contributors. So there was something about it that you wanted, and to do that in a non like B2C brand is pretty brilliant. I thought
Yeah,
that was amazing.
yeah.
I'm assuming that that was part of the strategy, that was something that,
It
or
was.
was it, that was just serendipity? It just happened.
No, it was part of the strategy. It was them saying if we can get sponsorship from the top down, we can get anywhere in the business.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
they were
crazy.
wrong.
You're selling
So
a phone, which is clearly a consumer thing, you would think, at a
yeah,
B2B strategy. That's pretty
hmm
innovative.
yeah.
So, but then I remember the day that I kind of understood that BlackBerry is no more is when there was a ad for BlackBerry above the urinal in the university. So I'm
Oh,
like if they're putting ads above urinals in universities, where before they were selling to CEOs, and
right.
now they're like, oh, maybe poor students will buy from us. I
Yeah.
was
How
like,
much market
okay,
share is left?
this is not good. Um,
That's great.
and look, we're giving them some shit now, but the innovator's dilemma, which is really what happened to BlackBerry and many amazing companies over history,
Mhm.
is a real problem, incredibly difficult to overcome.
Sure.
So I wouldn't say that us in our hubris we would have done any better if we were in their position.
Right.
So we should cut them some slack too. But what an incredible, amazing journey! What did you learn from a sales perspective? What were the big takeaways from the BlackBerry journey?
Oh, um, I learned that I went in thinking that because of the brand name that everybody assumed the value that the product had.
Mm,
I wasn't necessarily selling myself in the
mm,
BlackBerry days.
mm.
I was selling the brand and the product itself. Now I'm selling myself more. Um, I also relied heavily on channel in BlackBerry because obviously we only sold through carriers. So you had to have a phone plan through somebody. We weren't a carrier. Um, and so I learned a lot about selling through channel there, what it took to really, maintain those relationships and how you had to always be top of mind to those folks and make sure that you truly treated them as one of your own, an extension of your own sales force. It was constant enablement, making sure they understood, you know, what we were trying to do together. So, I learned a lot there. And then I really learned that was my first big foray into being part of a remote team. So I learned how to collaborate in a different way with the people. We were scattered all over the country at the time. We were the oldest team within BlackBerry. I think the average age of the BlackBerry employee at the time was around 25 or 26. Everybody on my team was essentially mid 30s or in their 40s because of the nature of us selling through AT&T. We were a lot more mature. Um, I don't know. There's so many things I've learned. Like I'm at the point in my career where I'm trying to put everything together, and there's all these new sales things popping up all the time. And
But is there anything that's kind of irrelevant that has just changed so much, in regards to how sales is done, back then and today? You said that now you're selling more yourself as opposed to the brand. What things have changed? What things are no longer true? What things are new?
yeah, I think the term solution selling is a thing of the past for sure.
Why is
Um,
that?
um, Everything now, I think people have been sold to for so long, and in the information age, the buyer is a lot more educated in most cases, more so than the people selling them the product, right?
Right.
So now it really comes down to the experience. Like, is the person that you are trying to work with, Are they having a good experience? If they're having a good experience, they'll buy from you. And a good experience means sometimes you have the confidence to just say, you know what, maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe I need to take a step back and you let me know when you're ready. As I get older, I start to appreciate my time more than anything else. After having children, when I was younger, I didn't care about time. I'd put all the effort I needed into a customer. Like I just wanted that deal. Now I've learned to be a lot smarter with my time. If I don't take a heavy sales approach anymore. I don't try to find the pain for a customer. I don't try to paint a picture where, oh, I feel like you're having this type of pain because somebody else in your same business has that pain. It doesn't necessarily correlate. So my approach now is I build value early on. I try to come in. I don't preach products and services. I really try to understand the person and what they're trying to accomplish. If I can't fit, I get out early. I say, I completely understand. Maybe this isn't the right time for you, and I'll always be here if you need me. But I'm going to essentially take a step back and let you do your thing. And
So
and
these,
normally,
this,
8 out of 10 times, they'll say, "But wait, no, I really do find the need to have you in here."
so this is amazing. I need to reconcile this because I hear from senior salespeople, don't take no for an answer. But on the other hand, you're saying, well, I'd rather take a no and early and take the no for an answer and move on to
Absolutely,
somebody else that actually needs
absolutely.
me. How do we reconcile these approaches? Are they just different and that's it? Because one
Yeah,
is about
yeah,
maximizing the amount of right customers that actually prospects, I should say, that actually want you, and the
right.
other is like you need to be the art of the deal and you need to get it. How do
Yeah.
we
I, I don't know. I think my philosophy now is I need to find the quickest way to know. If you
right?
are not going to do this, I've got to vet that out as quick as I possibly can and move on to somebody that's going to say yes.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how it's done. I think I just, over time, I started thinking, I'm not going to put effort and energy into somebody that's not willing to reciprocate that. There's either some type of a connection and a correlation of what I have to offer, whether it's the sales process or the buying experience for this person and the product that I'm bringing to the table or the problems that I'm going to solve for them. You know, in my field now, I know everybody has these issues, so there really isn't a customer that I would say I wouldn't work with. Um, I don't really know how you make that transition. I think it just happens over time. It's a maturity thing. It's the same concept of, when I'm younger in sales and I get an RFP, even if I don't have a relationship, I want to respond to the RFP. I want to show my boss, hey, I'm working. I'm going to try to get this business. The
Right.
reality is, you're not going to win that business.
Right.
You don't have a relationship. You're just a checkbox. Don't waste your time. Back away. Go spin your wheels on something that's more valuable for you.
Jay, what an absolute pleasure! This has been so much fun. We're completely out of time. There is
Yep.
there is one question that we ask everyone. It's the only scripted question we have on the show, and it's a difficult one because it's personal. If you had to go back to 20-something-year-old Jay,
Mhm.
what would your advice be to him?
Listen more. Listen to people more and show more empathy, because I think we all need that. And I think the world lacks that right now. We just all need to take a step back and understand that everybody comes from different walks of life. Everybody has, what I said earlier, a different meaning of normalcy in their lives. And we need to just understand that people are different, and show some empathy and just respect the fact that people are different and that it is okay to be different. Just be yourself.
Jay, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Ari. It's amazing. This was a great time. Thank you.